You're listening to the Spark Radio Network. Radio like you've never heard before. Innovation, creativity, and imagination are all said to begin with a spark. So fasten your seatbelt and take the ride of your life and listen for the spark.
Public personalities, it's becoming increasingly important to have an online presence. This normally takes the form of a website and social media. However, things like a cluttered site or broken links can scare potential readers away. It's time to get a health check. Until the 30th of June, Black Wolf Editorial Services is offering a special website health check package. Get a new bio for your site. Have the site navigation and general layout assessed. Get a review of your Twitter activities. Get an objective opinion about your public Facebook page. Find out what works well and what could potentially scare your readers away. And all this for $35. At the end of the day, the face we put online will be the one that most people will see. Let us help you put your best foot forward. Black Wolf Editorial Services, nurturing your writing into maturity. For full details and a list of other services, visit us at blackwolfeditorial.com.
Individuals and businesses with tax problems, listen carefully. Do you feel like you're losing control over your finances? If you owe over $10,000 in back taxes or have unfiled tax returns, we can help you take back control. The IRS is the largest and most aggressive collection agency in the world, and they can seize your bank account, garnish your paycheck, close your business, and file criminal charges. Take control of your tax problems now by calling the experts at Tax Mediation Services and take advantage of the Fresh Start program and new laws that may allow us to negotiate a settlement for the lowest amount possible. Our team of tax attorneys and enrolled agents can stop collections and get you protected so you can take control of your financial future. Tax Mediation Services is accredited by the Better Business Bureau. Call now for a free case review and a price protection guaranteed quote.
Call Tax Mediation Services now at 800-610-9050. That's 800-610-9050. 800-610-9050.
Is debt beating you down? You need discipline. You need the Debt Ninja. If you've been caught in a financial trap and need to be set free, then you need the Debt Ninja. Want to stop those harassing collection calls, start saving thousands in interest and fees, and get out of debt fast? Then you need to call the Debt Ninja. The Debt Ninja will find the best companies across the country that will help you consolidate all your bills into one easy payment, reduce your payments by 30 to 50%, and get you out of debt fast. If you have unsecured debt of $10,000 or more, such as credit cards, loans, or medical bills, call the Debt Ninja for a free 15-minute consultation.
Call 800-826-1246. 800-826-1246. That's 800-826-1246. Call today.
The Debt Ninja.
The internet will never be the same. You're listening to K98Talk.com.
Whoa! Good God, y'all. What is it good for? Absolutely. Let's get started again.
And so, my fellow Americans, ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country.
Freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. We didn't pass it on to our children in the bloodstream. The only way they can inherit the freedom we have known is if we fight for it, protect it, defend it, and then hand it to them with the well-taught lessons of how they in their lifetime must do the same.
I'm not ready to end the fight. I'm not ready to back down. 'Cause I've been through hell and I don't have time to go round and round and round. It's too late to turn back now. You know I wouldn't if I could. 'Cause I'm proud as hell. I can't bring myself to do what it is you think I should.
All right, so it's Tuesday evening, just a few minutes past the hour of 10, and that means it's time for the Jen and Rick Show. I'm one half of the crew, Rick. She's the other half, Jen, and I'm going to let her say good evening and let her open the show for once. Good evening, ma'am. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. Just came off kind of a crazy last week and a half, and having a quiet night to myself and getting to enjoy talking to you and letting out some of this pent-up rage over all the crap that's been going on the last few days.
I mean, seriously, right? I mean, honestly, I was proud of myself because last night I didn't actually yell. Because I do my show really late, and I do it in an area of the house that's usually fairly quiet, and I'm usually off by myself. But I was honestly afraid, with as mad as I was, that I was going to have like people coming from the other side of the house going, "What are you yelling about?" I'm like, yeah, last night was bad. I mean, and today's really not any better because it's like every time I turn around, you just got more people saying more stupid things that are just completely irrelevant to the situation, all because it makes them feel better.
Yeah, and it's not just like makes them feel better, but it gives them, they're taking the chance and the opportunity to try to spin this to further push some of their own biases, agenda, narrative, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And it's absolutely maddening, just incredibly maddening to watch something that is so horrific, one of the greatest domestic terrorist attacks we've had, and see people not just use it to try to, advocate against violence, but actually use it to kind of spew even more hate and bigotry against certain sectors of the American public. And I'm not talking Muslims. They're going after Christians, and they're going after law-abiding gun owners and any organization that wishes to support anything other than gun control.
And they're finding more and more creative ways to do it. Let me ask you a question, because I'm curious about this, because it's something that's just kind of dawned on me over the last few days. Have you noticed that right now, no matter what happens, the villain of the story is always the AR-15? There may not even necessarily have been an AR-15 anywhere near the vicinity of an incident, and they may not find out till weeks and weeks later that it actually wasn't an AR-15. But the narrative in all of these stories over and over again is this dastardly AR-15 that somehow managed to walk itself into a building and start shooting people.
Yeah, well, and also, most of the people that say that, like, they don't even know what an AR-15 is. First of all, and you covered this last night on your show about assault weapons and rifles and everything, and they just throw this term out there that they act like has some very solidified definition, and it doesn't. I mean, basically, they just use it for whatever they want.
It's because it makes it sound scary. Exactly.
Yep. Sounds very scary. And it's interesting whenever you see it, what people don't understand about an AR-15 versus, like, I guess what they're looking at of more like a wooden clad rifle. They don't realize that much of the difference, like most of the difference, is cosmetic. So it looks scarier than that other rifle that I'm used to seeing people point and shoot. So I'm going to assume that this one must be meaner, badder, uglier, more dangerous. And it's just simply not true. And the ignorance is astounding.
And that part is true. But, I mean, if you notice, even in the media, the narrative is always the same. It's kind of like, do you remember when Rush Limbaugh first got popular and he would start reading about the news stories where basically SUVs were going on rampages?
Mm-hmm.
They're covering the incidents with AR-15s almost exactly the same way. AR-15s may not even be there, but it was an AR-15 that did this, and because of the AR-15, these people were shot. It doesn't have anything to do with the person that's actually wielding the weapon. It's the weapon's fault. It's the same thing that they started doing when the climate stuff really started coming onto the scene. All of a sudden, you started seeing all of these stories where it wasn't the drunk guy that was driving the SUV that killed 15 people. The headline of the story was SUV drives through barricade, kills 15 people. How did the SUV do that? And why are we allowing them to do the same thing now with a particular type of weapon when it's been shown time and time again that no matter how many times they try to tell you, they did the same thing at the Sandy Hook shooting, they did the same thing at this shooting. They kept saying the phrase AR-15 over and over and over again. It wasn't even an AR-15 that was there at either one. They did eventually report weeks later to have found an AR-15 in the trunk of the guy that did the Sandy Hook shooting, but that wasn't even the weapon that actually made it into the building. But nobody talks about that anymore because for the first 3 days of the story, all you heard was AR-15, 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 AR-15. And now they're doing the same thing. And I have a question. Why are they singling out this particular weapon?
It sounds scary. I don't know. It's like they heard it used a couple times, in regards to something, I guess what they would like deem a little bit militant or, some sort of, I know I saw someone writing about how, and that's what some of these crazy militia groups use. So they've somehow linked it to, some sort of kind of almost militaristic type thing. And it's funny because I'm like, oh, honey, if you knew what they were actually using or, it's completely different. And they all also keep pushing it. They just don't care to correct it. Or even if they get corrected, they make excuses, but they're still pushing that this is automatic and that automatic weapons are not, for the most part, banned and have been for some time. So AR-15 just has this like military sound. It has a military look, and it's the gun of bad guys. It must be bad. It must be scary, right? It must be worse than all others.
Yeah, but think about this, and this is why I asked this particular question. I wanted to see if you'd picked up on it as well. Since there has been nothing but negative press coverage with incidents like this when it comes to the AR-15. Next time you have an extra 5 minutes to watch people completely freak out, just stand around somewhere where there's a lot of people and ask them the first thing they think of when they think of an AR-15. And make sure that you're not doing it in somewhere where people shoot guns, because I've done it. People their whole facial expression changes. And that's why I think they are targeting this particular weapon, because what they're doing is they're starting to sway public opinion about this particular weapon. And eventually they're going to get it to the point where people are so terrified from just hearing the word AR-15 that all of a sudden that gun has to be banned. And you know what's going to wind up happening? At some point they will get that to happen, because it's just like everything else they do. They're just going to keep pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing until it happens. And then when it happens, they're going to pick on the next big, bad, mean assault rifle, and they're going to make it the villain of every story until it can be banned. And it's how they're going to get it done. They're going to start by getting it done piecemeal, but eventually when they get it done enough, people are just going to be like, okay, the government needs to take care of us. I mean, at this point, we've already heard people like Bill O'Reilly, for God's sake, say basically that thing tonight, that high-powered rifles should not be allowed to be owned by the general public, and the government should decide what weapons are allowed to be carried by the general public. That is the exact opposite of anything that the Second Amendment stands for.
Right. And also, these words, these buzzwords, semi-automatic, high-powered, all of these, they use all of these little descriptives in a way to scare and to try to make things sound like bigger, badder, and whatever else. And it's funny when I point out to someone, well, a handgun is also semi-automatic. What? The media has successfully, and the left in particular, successfully, it kind of used these words that do describe these guns and these rifles, do adequately describe them, but have put a connotation on them in a way that makes it sound so much more like crazy and bad and dangerous than it is. And also, it's always the user that's dangerous.
Well, yeah, I mean,
not the gun.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing that we as people that know how to responsibly use guns, we understand. I mean, and this is the part that I guess I don't get, because when it comes to drunk driving, we don't blame the car. We blame the person who decided to get
or
behind.
the alcohol. We don't blame. We're not like, let's ban all booze because people can't hold their liquor.
Well, they tried that, remember? It just didn't work.
Right. But I mean, you don't hear hardly anybody trying to be like, we need to limit booze. Like, if you have mental health issues, you can't buy liquor. No, they would never say that. And that's not even a right guaranteed by our Constitution.
Wait, so just to clarify, there's no right to get plastered in the Constitution?
Well, I think it's covered. I think it's covered just in our pursuit of happiness. Because living in this world, I don't know how you're going to be happy without a little bit of booze.
I was going to say, I thought it was pretty much covered by pursuit of happiness, but you beat me to the punch.
Pretty much.
Especially lately, can I just say.
Oh, man.
So, since I ranted for almost an hour about this last night, what have been some of your takes that you've noticed over the last couple of days in regards to this situation? Anything that stood out? Anything that's made you want to yell at people? Anybody that you want to verbally slap?
Many things, but the most, I think the one that stood out to me the most is the way in which so many of these, so many on the left have, it's bizarre to me what they have done. They started almost immediately tweeting about Christians. This was, even if you don't think he was a super devout Muslim, that really doesn't matter. Even if you think he was gay and was tortured himself by wrestling with the fact that he was gay and it was against, his code and his culture and his religion, none of that really matters in the face of what it was he told authorities, which when he called 911 was he mentioned being in solidarity with the Boston Marathon bombers, the U.S. citizen that committed the first, pulled off the first suicide attack in Syria, and then protesting, and then he pledged to ISIS and its leader, and then said he was protesting the U.S. bombings in Syria and Iraq and the killing of women and children. So I don't care what his inner turmoils were. These are the words that he said. These are the reasons he gave. So you don't get to tell me and measure how much of a Muslim he was or was not, which I also think is absurd that even if he was not of the most extreme sort of devout, he at least took part. And also radical ISIS is not exactly like the most extremely devout sect of Islam. I mean, they pervert it in all sorts of ways, especially their leaders from various greed and other things that they kind of indulge in. But this is what he said. And he may not have been following all the correct traditions and customs. But his father praises the Taliban and has many, many ties. He took several trips to Saudi Arabia. I mean, let's not pretend like this is a guy that just one time went to a mosque and then decided to kill people and blame it on Islam. Like, he absolutely was corrupted by some aspect of the radical ideology. And it really doesn't matter about anything else, but this is what he was. This is what he said. And we knew that very quickly after the incident occurred. And instead of even just going against guns, which I always expect when there's a shooting in the United States, is for all the liberals to be like, anti-gun, gun control, gun control, gun control. You Republicans are stupid. I get that. I expect that. That doesn't appall me in the way that it appalled me that they almost immediately took to social media and started equivocating and trying to compare morally Christians to Muslims. And in this case, they're saying basically Muslim extremists are not Muslim, but all Christians are bad. All Christians suck. All Christians are bigots and hateful, and that we share part in anything like this that happens. And that is so profoundly offensive to me, and I don't get offended easily.
Well, you basically summed up exactly how I felt for the last day and a half. I think one of the first things that initially just got me to the point where I was basically mad as hell and not going to take it anymore was when I watched Sally Cohn put out a tweet that says, okay, so big deal, so Muslims kill us. Christians force us to commit suicide. What's the difference?
There were a lot of things she said yesterday that made me want to throw my computer against the wall. But that in particular was so dumbfounding. Like, you are seriously, and I know that you were saying last night about suicide being a choice, and you're absolutely right. But even if someone is so mentally deficient that they, make that choice in a less than, lucid state, you're going to compare someone's suicide to someone turning into a mass murderer? And you're going to blame it on Christians. I mean, they're seriously trying to blame this attack in any which way they can. They went after Chick-fil-A. Chick-fil-A opened its doors on Sundays, which they're normally closed because they respect Sunday as the day for rest, as God put in the Bible. And they opened their doors. They gave away free food to people giving blood that stood in long, long lines of all different races and sexual preferences that are legal to donate. And they opened their doors on a day they're supposed to be closed and gave free sandwiches, took people in and passed out water and did all sorts of things. And someone's like, well, no, but they're still, I saw all over Twitter, but they're still complicit because they're a hateful company and they have a part in all of this. They've promoted an ideology that encourages, hatefulness that leads to things like the shooting at Pulse. The willingness to twist and spin every aspect of this so much that it is solely on the shoulders of Christians when there was not a Christian that had anything to do with this is so insulting, but also it's intentionally intellectually dishonest in order to push their narrative and smear Christianity.
Hey, liberals, are you listening? Get a little closer to the microphone. Let me clue you in on something. When you hear the phrase Allah is a granola bar, that's not a Christian. Just saying. When they start saying things like that, that's not our team, brother. Those are the Islamic folks, and usually if they're yelling it really, really loud, they're usually like radical Muslims, and they're usually about to do something really, really stupid. So in case you missed the memo somewhere, when you hear a phrase like that, that's not Christians. And and I said this last night, but I'm going to say it again. One of the best ways that I think I've heard it put lately was actually by a friend of ours that we both follow on Twitter, Pastor Frisbee, who actually said yesterday, Christians don't have to worry about killing sinners any longer because Jesus died for the sinners. All we have to do is let them know.
Right.
That's
part of the thing when everybody says, but the Bible, the Old Testament. No, and Pastor's point was Christ came and paid for our sins so that we no longer had to be tied to and be bound by the laws of the Old Testament as it was laid out. He gave us new life. He gave us a more loving and all-encompassing, compassionate path. And that gets lost a lot, and people don't care to know or learn that distinction.
And just to be clear on that, that's actually on both sides, because I know plenty of supposed Christians who want to hold people to books like Leviticus.
Oh no, 100%. 100% correct.
And that's wrong too. And that's one of the things that I've always tried to make sure that everybody understands on my show. I will tell you exactly how I feel about a certain thing. But just because that's how I feel about it doesn't mean that I expect everybody else to hold that exact same standard. And if you feel differently than I do about it, I'm not going to treat you any differently as a person, because that's not what we're supposed to do. I'm just supposed to tell you what I think, and you're supposed to tell me what you think. And if we're on the same page, great. If not, life goes on. I'm never going to browbeat anybody over a particular issue. I've never been that way. Not going to start now, except for maybe these crazy people that keep trying to tell me that all Christians are evil.
Well, I was going to say, I went on a little ranty rant last night, and I know you know this, but it's not very long. Let me just read it real quick, and it kind of sums up all of this that is just so upsetting about the way that so many on the left, and I'm not just talking about some Twitter trolls, I mean major, prominent journalists, leaders, and otherwise influential people on the left took to social media to bash Christianity. So I said the left has a religion problem. They revel in demonizing some, Christianity and Judaism, while ardently defending another, Islam. They fight stereotyping and bigotry against Muslims while actively engaging in the same against Christians. They invoke past sins of Judeo-Christians in order to try to morally equate that which they defend. It's willfully disingenuous. They wish to liken the barbaric homicidal culture that Islamic extremism displays daily across the globe to any incident involving a person who once stepped foot in a church. Never mind their motivations, they must be known as Christian. But with acts of radical Islamic terrorism, we are badgered with untruths about the perp's religious devotion and motivations. Such information is inconvenient. Facts that don't fit their narrative are discarded. It's an egregious example of intellectual dishonesty. What is the obsession with defending the indefensible? Radical Islam is in direct contradiction with leftist ideology and basic human rights. They have no regard for any human life. Gay, straight, black, white, infidel, or fellow Muslim. All are dispensable. So what gives? Why the fondness for this particular religion? The hypocrisy of the left's preaching on this issue is utterly astounding. I mean, it's true. These radical Islamists don't even love fellow Muslims the way that the left is trying to excuse them and blame a completely different religion.
Yeah, I mean, and I guess one of the things that, and trust me, this was a long, arduous journey for me, because I got to tell you, in the beginning of this, because of some of the reading that I've done through the Quran and everything else, I was one of those guys that honestly, when 9/11 happened, I was kill them all, let God sort them out, because it was just that scary to me. But one of the things that I've kind of, as I've gotten more involved and talked with people more and spent more time on social media and other things where I can actually see other people's points of view, the one thing that I realized is when I started lumping every single Muslim into the same basket, I was sounding exactly like the left when it comes to Christians. And I don't like it when the left does that with Christians. So I can imagine how the Muslims that are still over here going, hey, that's not my religion. I know that they say they're part of this, but they're not. And then I got to thinking about the Westboro Baptist folks. Because according to the Westboro Baptist folks, I'm not a Christian.
Right. Well, and you made a really good point earlier. And I know that there are a lot that will, that disagree. And I understand many of their points about whether radicalized Islam is actually radical or not. And there's a lot of that I agree with, that I think in some ways the radicals are the moderates. But some of that has to do with the countries and the cultures they're living in and the ways in which they've adapted to their faith. But in general, I mean, no brush can be painted. That's what you're exactly right. It's what they always try to do. And I don't remember what your tweet was earlier, but it was really good about we can't become the left. We can't do that which we're fighting against and despising just because it's on a different side. That's not in any way going to help not only our political side, but it's not going to help this country, and it's not going to benefit America in any way.
Actually, I have the tweet right here. I'm pretty sure I know which one you're talking about. It was from about 8 hours ago, and it says, I refuse to give in to fear. Every Muslim cannot be held accountable for the actions of a few, or we become no better than those like Sally Cohn.
Absolutely. 100%.
And like I said, this was a hard place for me to get to, because it's really easy when you see somebody that's different than you shooting people and blowing up buildings to automatically want to hate every single person that looks like that. And we all have at one point or another fallen into that trap. But you really have to stop and think, because otherwise, if we don't, if things continue to go the way they are now, and we don't find a way to maintain our humanity, then we're going to start seeing things like what happened during World War II with the concentration camps and the internment camps and every other kind of camp that came up. And I don't want to see either my children or my grandchildren living through that kind of thing. I just don't.
Right. Well, and I think that, but I do think it's fair for us to say that we are going to hold Muslims to the same standard that we hold others. We hold, people, the African American community, as conservatives, we hold them to the standard of, okay, you need to stand up against the violence. You need to speak out against the, unwillingness to make education a priority. Those that have gotten out of the bad situations need to be able to stand up and be a voice of reason and a leader in their communities. Christians should denounce Westboro Baptist Church and others like them that in no way represent true Christianity. It goes on and on and on, like various different communities, need to be a part of the process of the problem fixing or of, eradicating the hate. And Muslims are no different. We need to see some very active leaders that are condemning acts like this and calling out people that are basically bastardizing their faith as they see it.
Yeah, and and the thing about it is I have said exactly what you're saying now, but the one thing that I have noticed is over time, and yeah, it's taken a long time, and in some ways I think it's taken longer than it should, but I am finally starting to see more and more people of that faith standing up and saying these people do not believe what I believe.
Yep. And it's been a long time coming, and I think it also speaks to places like the United States and the support that we have at least been trying to show, and the compassion for people that are not involved and are not committing these atrocities, and that we're willing to listen, and we're willing to stand by them and stand up for them against, any kind of bigotry. If we can't do that, then there's no need for it. Why would they? Why would they come out and say anything? But they've been hosted on TV shows now, and there's a couple very loud voices, and it's important, and it's very good to hear. The same way that it's important for conservatives to stand up against Trump. I mean, it's, you're talking about one is religion and one is politics and one is, a community culture. Like when I was talking about African Americans and the urban kind of death, it's all different things, but the baseline is true. We have to stand out against and stand up against what is wrong and what is, decaying humanity.
No, and exactly. Sorry, I got distracted. The station manager from WNJC was all of a sudden shooting me a message about the RNC, so I got a little distracted for a moment there. But, the whole thing overall is we have to figure out what's more important. Are we going to maintain our humanity and still find a way to maintain safety? Are we going to give in totally to fear and basically just do whatever we have to do to survive? Because, ladies and gentlemen, I'm here to tell you there is a major difference between surviving and living. One is not necessarily the same as the other. And yes, we could do all kinds of things to make ourselves safe. We could put all kinds of rules in place that put guns on every corner and police officers that look more like military. Oh, wait, that's already happening. All of these other things that we could do to give ourselves the illusion of safety. But the simple fact of the matter is, safety is just that. It is an illusion. So we have to decide, are we going to lean more towards making sure that we give everybody the illusion of being completely and totally safe? Are we going to find ways to maintain our humanity? Because the two are mutually exclusive. It's no different than when, and I don't remember who said it, but someone at one point said that those who value safety over, or security over liberty, at some point shall have neither. And if we continue to allow ourselves to give in to fear, whether it comes to these weapons like AR-15s that everybody says are completely terrible and scary, or, oh my God, we have to lock up and keep every single Muslim or every single person that even looks like a Muslim from ever coming into this country, at some point we're going to lose who we are. And if we have to lose who we are just to hang on to a piece of soil, I don't see the point in that. Pardon me.
Yeah, I mean, we can't sacrifice what has built America and what has, and the freedoms that we've been given for the acts of some really terrible, horrible people. And make no mistake that it was a horrific tragedy. And I have so much compassion for the victims and their families and their friends and anyone that, has felt the loss in a real way. And I also have compassion for the LGBT community and our entire country, that whenever something like this happens, part of the reason that we're talking about all the crazy back and forth and, super hyped rhetoric is because we're all appalled and we're so, demoralized by an act like this, that we're all so unable to believe that someone could do this to fellow Americans and just fellow humans, that we all get kind of hyped up and dramatic, and it's understandable, but turning against our own citizens is not the way to go.
And you mentioned a pretty interesting point there that we hadn't really touched on yet, and then we really need to take a break. When you talk about these last couple of incidents, those actually haven't been foreigners. Those have been American citizens. So that brings up an entirely different animal. How do you deal with it? I mean, it's easy to say that we're not going to let any Muslims who are not already here into the country until we figure out what's going on. That, Trump said that for months, then he backed off of it. Now he's back onto it again. But what do you do about the Islamic American citizens that are already here? Because that's exactly what I was just talking about a moment ago.
Or Timothy McVeigh's. I mean, it's not as prevalent recently in our world, but those still happen too. There are still those crazies, the anarchists and the whatever else that they're going nuts about. When they're homegrown, when they're domestic, there's no grounds for deportation. You can't revoke their citizenship. What do we do other than just heighten surveillance around any suspicion? But then even that gets dicey because you're talking about an American citizen. And if there's no real evidence and there's just some phone calls and some text messages and maybe a few neighbors that are a little, concerned, then is that enough to, completely sacrifice their privacy and then possibly Minority Report style, take away, strip them of rights so that they, because of a crime or an act or something like that, they might possibly commit in the future without anything real to back it up? I mean, it gets very, very dangerous.
All right, well, we'll touch on this some more when we get back. We also have some Anderson Cooper audio that we haven't touched on yet. I figured we'll probably get into that. But at this point, we've got to take a break, folks. Pay a few bills. We're now really past the bottom of the hour. We'll be back here in just a couple minutes. You are listening to the Jenn and Rick Show right here live on K98 Talk. We'll be back in just a minute.
What it is you think I should.
You're listening to the Spark Radio Network, radio like you've never heard before. Innovation, creativity, and imagination are all said to begin with a spark. So fasten your seatbelt and take the ride of your life and listen for the spark.
All writers are prone to becoming so attached to our characters and stories that we struggle to see why a passage may not be working. It takes another set of eyes to help us nurture our writing to full maturity. At Black Wolf Editorial Services, we strive to enable writers to develop and grow, shaping stories into masterpieces that can stand the test of time. Editing services are provided for all genres and all age categories. Services range from critiques of the short story through to the line edits of the full-length novel and copy editing for those preparing for publication. We also offer assistance on generating a writer's bio for your websites, as well as help with those book blurbs and promotional material. We won't abandon you to the masses. We want to celebrate with you in your successes. Black Wolf Editorial Services, nurturing your writing into maturity. For a full list of services and prices, visit us at blackwolfeditorial.com.
This is Slickery Trigger for Rebel Road Tactical. With proper care and feeding, your pistol will be ready when you need it. There to save your life. Shouldn't your gear be that good? Whether you need a holster for comfortable everyday carry or a tough as nails holster for your next training course, Rebel Road Tactical has what you need. Check us out on the web at rebelroadtactical.com.
Cause I've been through hell and I don't have time to go round and round and round. It's too late to turn back now. You know I wouldn't if I could. Cause I'm proud as hell, I can't bring myself to do what it is you think I should.
All right, folks, we are back. We are live, and we are down to about 20 minutes because we ran really long in that first half of the show. All right, so we've got a little bit of audio that I definitely wanted to make sure that I got to play today, because I got to say, when I heard this today, I almost broke my computer. This is Anderson Cooper speaking to, I'm not sure how to pronounce the last name, but I guess it's Bondi, Pam Bondi, on some issues about the LGBTQ community, and her thoughts and some of the things that she had mentioned about the whole Florida shooting incident. Apparently he wasn't happy about some of the things that he says, or some of the things that she says. So we're going to let you guys listen to this, and we're going to talk about it. So here we go.
I want to ask you, I saw you the other day saying that anyone who attacks the LGBT community, our LGBT community, you said, will be gone after with the full extent of the law.
Exactly right.
I talked to a lot of gay and lesbian people here yesterday who are not fans of yours, and who said that they thought you were being a hypocrite, that you for years have fought, you've basically gone after gay people, said that in court that gay people, simply by fighting for marriage equality, were trying to do harm to the people of Florida, to induce public harm, I believe was the term you used in court. Do you really think you're a champion of the gay community?
Let me tell you, when I was sworn in as Attorney General, I put my hand on the Bible and was sworn to uphold the Constitution of the state of Florida. That's not a law. That was voted into our state constitution by the voters of Florida. That's what I was defending. Mm-hmm. Had nothing to do, I've never said I don't like gay people. That's ridiculous.
But do you worry about using language accusing gay people of trying to do harm to the people of Florida when... Doesn't that send a message to some people who might have bad ideas in mind?
Anderson, I don't believe gay people could do harm to the state of Florida.
But you argued that in court.
My lawyer argued a case defending what the Supreme Court allowed the voters to put in our state constitution.
But you were arguing that gay marriage, if there was gay marriage, if there was same-sex marriage, that would do harm to the people of Florida, to Florida society.
That it was constitutional to put that in the Constitution.
Are you saying you did not believe it would do harm to Florida?
Of course not. Of course not. Gay people. No, I've never said that. Those words have never come out of my mouth.
But that is specifically what you were arguing in court.
You know, no. What we argued was it was in the Constitution of the state of Florida. Let me give you an example. Medical marijuana. A 12-year-old could get it if it passed. We took that to the Supreme Court because of that language. Hold on. But if that passed, I would defend that as well, because it's my job to defend what's in the Constitution of the state of Florida. That's what it was about.
The hotline that you've been talking about on television, which allows family members and spouses of the dead to get information, which is incredibly important, and I appreciate you talking about on the air. Had there been no gay marriage, had there been no same-sex marriage, you do realize that there would be no spouses, that boyfriends and girlfriends of the dead would not be able to get information and would not be able to probably even visit in the hospital here. Well, so isn't there a sick irony in that?
Well, yeah, and let me tell you something. Let me take it a step farther. People right now who are partners and aren't married officially aren't able to get information. So we're trying to assist them in getting information, because early on,
isn't there a sick irony that you for years were fighting that very idea?
I was defending the Constitution of what over 69% of the voters put in the Constitution.
But the federal court said that's not the Constitution, and you continued to fight it.
No, that's why we rushed it to get it to the U.S. Supreme Court, because we needed
before it was the Supreme Court, there was a federal judge, and you continued to fight it after the federal judge ruled, and in fact you spent hundreds of thousands of dollars of taxpayer money
well,
fighting
Anderson,
it.
we rushed to get it to the Supreme Court. You know what today's about? Human beings. Today's about victims.
It's about gay and lesbian
here.
victims.
It sure is. LGBT victims.
I'm just wondering, is it hypocritical to portray yourself as a champion of the gay community when I'm just reflecting what a lot of gay people have told me they don't see you as
Anderson, I'm not portraying myself as anything other than trying to help human beings who have lost their lives, who are right behind us right now in hospital beds, who have family members who aren't getting the services they need. This morning, you know what I've been doing? Trying to fight with a funeral home for overcharging family members to bury their loved ones. I'm not championing anything other than Floridians. That's what it's about. And this is about victims who need help. This is about family members who need services.
It's just that I will say I have never really seen you talk about gays and lesbians and transgender people in a positive way until now. I read your Twitter history for the last year, and I saw you tweeting about, National Dog Month and National Shelter Dog Appreciation Day or Adopt a Shelter Dog Month. It is Gay Pride Month. You've never even tweeted about Gay Pride Month.
Well, actually, if you look at my website now, we have hands clasped together, all different colored rainbow hands.
So you just put that up now?
Yeah, I did after this horrible tragedy, absolutely.
Well,
the only thing I'm championing are human beings whose lives were lost.
So that's your message to gay and lesbian people here? Because, again, I'm just telling you what people have been telling me to ask you. Moving forward, do you see yourself as being a vocal champion for gay and lesbian citizens in the state?
They are citizens just like anyone else, of course. My goodness, Anderson, we've had 49 people murdered simply because they were in a bar at the wrong time.
Right.
That's horrible.
Yeah.
I'm a career prosecutor. These family members are devastated.
Well, it's good to hear.
These surviving victims are devastated. That's what this is about.
Right. I know a lot of gay and lesbian people in the state want to feel that the people who represent them represent everybody in the state.
We're human beings, and that's what this is about.
Well, I appreciate you talking to us.
That's what this is about. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Okay, so I'm just going to say this now, and I've said this before, but I'm going to say it again. Anderson Cooper's a dick.
See, it's funny. I actually have kind of liked him in general. I mean, not when he goes all political, but, as an interviewer, as a reporter, and I respect some of the things he's done, places he's gone. He's never really rubbed me too much the wrong way other than you're, of course, a leftist. But this kind of thing is just makes me so mad.
So wait, just for the record, are you saying that Anderson Cooper has before rubbed you in the right way? Just checking.
It's not how he swings, but,
Yeah, just checking. All right. I mean, and the thing about it is I really don't watch his show that often. I do, because I'm a news junkie, so I flip from channel to channel. And I have to admit, I've liked some of the segments that he's done. But the fact that she kept saying, look, that's not what today's about. Look, this was my takeaway from this interview. You actually had someone, finally, who you knew up until recently was not on your side, saying all of the things that you've wanted them to say, and now all you're doing is repeatedly punching them in the face for the fact that they didn't say it before today.
Yeah.
You know what she probably walked away with? If that's how you guys are going to treat me when I'm trying to show you that I do understand that you're human beings and that you're suffering and that you've had a really tough time over the last few days, and even though I may have fought against some of these things because it's what the entire state wanted, not just you guys, and this is how your community is going to treat me, if it were me, I might have just washed my hands of the whole thing, been like, hey, look, I tried to be here. You guys have to understand I'm governor of the entire state, not just governor of gay people. So when my state stepped up and said that's not something that we want, we tried to make sure that the entirety of the state got what it was that they were asking for, because we can't keep governing to just the minorities. And, that may have made everybody hate me if I was her, but I actually respected the fact that she stood up and kept telling him over and over again, that's not what today's about. Today is about the fact that human beings are suffering, and we may not always agree, but these are still human beings. And he just kept verbally punching her in the face.
Yeah.
And
that was what was really unsettling about it, and where he was like crossing into, major jerk territory, was because it's like, but. And seriously, to say, okay, well, you can't possibly be against anti-gay violence because you never promoted gay pride on social media? That's ridiculous. And Guy Benson had a great article on Town Hall about this today. It's actually where I kind of saw this first. I'd seen a couple things fly by, but I hadn't, really looked at anything yet. And then, of course, and Guy's one of my faves. He goes on, shows some of this, and he's like, this is such a way in which you really turn off the people that maybe don't quite support gay rights, gay marriage, or anything. I mean, you get into this kind of bullying scenario with someone like the Florida Attorney General, and people are watching and they're like, I felt really bad for them, and I was starting to come around on a few things because I'm a human and I have compassion. Never mind. Click. You're just a jerk. So, and that's not up to Cooper to, sway these minds necessarily, but it does add to all of it, and it kind of questions his actual integrity as a news journalist. It's pretty embarrassing. And then Benson goes on to say, so by this logic, Hillary Clinton's public stance is completely irrelevant because she once opposed gay marriage and actually did so for most of her career until very recently when it was politically prudent not to. So how can she be taken seriously on anything, and why should anyone ever vote for her?
Well, his hero is pretty much irrelevant too, because up until it actually came to fruition, Barack Obama was actually once quoted as saying the marriage between a man and a woman is the only marriage that should matter. So by that same standard, they really can't give anybody any credit.
Nope. 2008 election, he absolutely was saying that before that. And then Hillary actually hit him on it. I mean, that was one of Hillary's things, was like, he doesn't believe in traditional marriage in 2008. I mean, come on. People are just, so willing to be sheep. But I think it's interesting to break up her ability to be able, because she has pledged that she will prosecute anti-gay violence, just as harshly and as, vigilantly as she would any other kind of violence. And that's kind of what he was calling into question. I think it's interesting when we're talking about that, she really brought up some of the prosecutorial aspects of it, and he's still kind of challenging her. I couldn't help but think about the wife of the shooter, who we now have learned knew he was wanting to plan an attack. It's not clear whether she knew about this attack. She's denied that to the FBI, but I don't know if I believe her, quite frankly. And then she goes on to tell them about how she took trips to scout potential targets. And, this is one of those things that will be prosecuted under Florida law. If she gets charged. And should she be charged, I think she doesn't get a pass because she was an extremist Muslim's wife. By our laws, which is what we are ruled under, she is at least in some way complicit. If she knew he had a plan, she knew he was wanting to mass murder citizens and didn't report or in any way try to stop this.
No, exactly. And I said just as much earlier today when I saw the story break that apparently she at least had some idea of what it was he was thinking about doing. I don't know if she knew all of the details. I don't know, because I've seen at least one story where I heard it said that she had actually tried to dissuade him from whatever he was going to do and realized that she wasn't going to be able to. And at that point, since she made a conscious decision. She chose to not notify any type of authority as to what she thought might have been happening. Then I have a problem with that, and I think that she needs to be held accountable. Because look, I railed for about 10 minutes with the whole if you see something, say something policy that Obama's been spouting now for years, and now Trump's saying the same thing. But there's a difference between trying to make the crazy cat lady rat out her neighbors, and somebody that actually knows something is probably going to happen, and them not doing anything, especially when they're actually related to or married to the person that is going to be committing these acts. I mean, the only thing that honestly still may wind up keeping her from being able to get charged is, isn't there something in legalities terms about not having to testify against your spouse? Would that keep you from having to report crimes that you think they're going to commit?
No. It does protect you from testifying, but it does not protect you from being an accessory or being in some way. There are various different, points of legality there. And there are various charges for which she could be brought up on. But it doesn't protect her from not saying anything. And I think that we run a really big risk here in excusing this. If in fact, like she did already tell the FBI as reported by the AP, if she did in fact knowingly drive him to scout out possible targets, it doesn't matter if she knew the plan or not. She already did that and refused to report. She knew it was upcoming. It was imminent, and she refused to report. I get being scared. I get possibly being abused. That's not what this relationship necessarily looks like. He did get accused of abuse in his ex-wife, in the relationship with his ex-wife, but we don't know if that's the case in this one. But I've got a very personal story of a wife that had suspicions and made an excuse to leave and called 911 on her way to the police station to report her husband and her brother-in-law for murder. So, and she was beaten on a regular basis, never pressed charges, lived in constant fear of her husband. And still, when it came to murder, she acted. So I don't think we can excuse it. Even if it is a cultural abusive situation, I don't think we can fully excuse it. I think that a judge can be lenient on sentencing. I don't think we can completely, resist, or I don't think we can completely, not hold anything accountable and not at least charge and have a grand jury here.
Well, no, and I agree, and I should have clarified, because I know we have people listening right now. When I asked a completely silly question, that was as devil's advocate. I actually know quite a bit about how that actually works. I just knew that somebody somewhere was going to be like, well, maybe we shouldn't charge her, because isn't there something that keeps you from having to testify against your husband? But yeah, but the whole thing with that is, and it's the same thing that I said today, look, even if it was just that she knew there was the possibility, and let's say that she drove him to 3 or 4 different places and didn't even know which one it was going to be, at some point she should have contacted the authorities and said, look, I don't honestly know everything that's going on, but for some reason he's having me drive him to these particular places, and he seems like he's trying to get a feel for the number of people that are there, the exits, all of the above, and I think there may be something going on. I mean, let's face it, the guy's already been all over the FBI's watch list now for forever, so it's not like it wouldn't have taken anything. And that was the other thing I was going to say. She also, if she was so fearful about herself getting, involved, what she could have done also is someone that she does get to see regularly, a mother-in-law, a friend, a neighbor. She could have told them and asked them to call when she just is walking out to get the mail. That way, if she's worried about, does he monitor her phone? Does he, all those kinds of things, which I do know come into play with abusive situations. And asked to call. And the fact that he has already been on a watch list, that he has already been investigated and interviewed by the FBI multiple times, would have automatically made this a more legitimate threat that I do think they would have addressed and at least been more closely looking at. And who knows if it would have been prevented. I'm not sure what they could have come up with, but it certainly would have been given these 49 lives and the other the other 50 or so, more of a chance. Yeah, and I mean, that's the whole thing. At some point, even if she was completely terrified, you have to sometimes put your own fear aside and realize that it doesn't necessarily matter what happens to you if you're going to be trying to protect other people. I mean, and there are people that make that conscious decision every single day. But the simple fact of the matter is when you become so disconnected from your fellow human beings that it doesn't seem to matter to you that someone that you're married to is scoping out locations to possibly do serious bodily injury to as many people as possible and possibly kill them, and you do nothing. That is one of the things that is going to continue to feed the exact opposite of this argument that you and I have been making all day. And it's why they're going to keep saying that every single Muslim has the potential to be a jihadist, because every time you turn around, there's a common thread, or there's a mom, or there's a spouse that knew about it. Speaking of common threads, we're about out of time, but the one last thing that I kind of wanted to touch on as we're about to have to roll the fade to black type music. Did you know that there's a common thread with all of the recent attacks? The one in California, the one in Florida, the Boston bombings, they all had access and either went to the same mosque as the person that they're speaking about, that they call the American cleric, or they were watching his YouTube videos, or in the instance of the Fort Hood shooting, he was actually emailing back and forth with this same person. So my question with all of this, when we start seeing all of the different underlying threads, can we honestly say that any of this is actually lone wolf behavior anymore when you realize that there start being common denominators?
No, the lone wolf argument is absolutely ludicrous when it comes to these, especially when they're pledging to ISIS, when, like you said, they're following these certain people. The lone wolf thing has been completely capitalized on by ISIS. They have taken to social media and to other various forms to be able to reach these people and allow them to kind of be their lone wolves. But make no mistake, they are not alone. They have learned and become tactical in their behavior by identifying and being a part of this group and possibly learning from some of them. So the lone wolf thing is quite ridiculous.
All right, well, we've officially run a little bit long, so we need to make our way out of here. As we do every close, why don't you remind folks where they can interact with you should they choose to do so?
Best way is Twitter at @JHolmstead. You can also follow me on Facebook, JR Homestead, and check out misfitpolitics.weebly.com, a really cool blog, and soon to be some more stuff coming from some smart tweets I'm working with.
All right, well, I know you're taking Thursday night off. Apparently, I've just been informed by Miss Jess that I'm not taking Thursday night off, so I'll be here doing the Jess and Rick show.
She's kind of the boss around here lately.
Yeah, she does kind of get her way, but she does a lot of work for me behind the scenes, and I don't usually have to pay her for it. So
she is great.
But anyway, so I'll be back with you live tomorrow night. Actually, we thought Grouchy was going to be doing a replay because of his jury duty. He'll be live tomorrow night as well. And coming up Monday, I actually have the head of the Libertarian Party coming on the show, so make sure that you tune in for that. And not sure what's happening on Friday yet, but it's Friday, so it'll be a party one way or the other. All right, so on that note, folks, we are out. If you want to interact with me, it's really easy to do it. Just go to Twitter. It's where I spend most of my time, AOTR_host. You can also shoot me an email if you're old school at rick@k98talk.org. And remind me at some point in general, I'll actually get you an email address if you want one. I just keep forgetting to set it up.
Okie doke.
All right, and on that note, folks.
Back down, 'cause I've been through hell and I don't have time to go round and round and round. It's too late to turn back now. You know I wouldn't if I could, 'cause I'm proud as hell. I can't bring myself to do what it is you think I should.
Individuals and businesses with tax problems, listen carefully. Do you feel like you're losing control over your finances? If you owe over $10,000 in back taxes or have unfiled tax returns, we can help you take back control. The IRS is the largest and most aggressive collection agency in the world, and they can seize your bank account, garnish your paycheck, close your business, and file criminal charges. Take control of your tax problems now by calling the experts at Tax Mediation Services and take advantage of the Fresh Start program and new laws that may allow us to negotiate a settlement for the lowest amount possible. Our team of tax attorneys and enrolled agents can stop collections and get you protected so you can take control of your financial future. Tax Mediation Services is accredited by the Better Business Bureau. Call now for a free case review and a price protection guaranteed quote.
Call Tax Mediation Services now at 800-610-9050. That's 800-610-9050. 800-610-9050.